mankind marches on, going from strength to strength. All that now eludes us will one day be well within our reach. But as I say, we must work. And we must do all we can for those trying to find the truth. Here in Russia, very few people do work at present. The Russian intellectuals I know, far and away, the greater part of them anyway, aren't looking for anything. They don't do anything. They still don't know the meaning of hard work. They call themselves an intelligentsia, but they treat their servants like inferiors and the peasants like animals. They don't study properly. They never read anything serious. In fact, they don't do anything at all. Science is something they just talk about, and they know precious little about art. Oh, they are extremely earnest. They all go around looking extremely solemn. They talk of nothing but wetty issues and discuss abstract problems. But all this time, everyone knows the workers are abominably fed and sleep without proper bedding, 30 to 40 a room, with bed bugs everywhere. To say nothing of the stench, the damp, the moral degradation. And clearly, all our fine talk is just meant to pull wool over our own eyes and of other people's too. Tell me where are those children's creches that there's all this talk about? Tell me where are the libraries? These are just the things that people write novels about. We haven't got actually any of them. What we have got is dirt, vulgarity, and squalor. I loathe all those earnest faces. They scare me. And so do the earnest conversations. Why can't we just keep quiet for a change? Welcome all to the 25th story, the Silver Jubilee story of PhD, the philosophical drama, season 3, the 4th story of this season. And today is World Theatre Day, so a very good occasion to invite our one of the arts students. The monologue that I just tried to perform is one from a very famous play called The Cherry Orchard. It's a play written by the famous playwright Anton Chekhov. And it talks about the socio-political situation in Russia in the early phases of the 20th century. So this comes from 1903, if I'm correct. And the first production was staged in 1904, directed by another very famous Russian director, Konstantin Stanislavski, also known as the author of An Actor Prepares. Now, given the current situation of the way the Russian invasion in Ukraine is going around, and trying to absorb what's the situation there, it's interesting that our today's speaker or our today's guest on the show is someone who is doing her PhD in theater and especially she's working on theater in war affected zones. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure to add on our guest for today, Ash Marinaccio, doing her PhD in CUNY in New York, USA. So, Ash, I'm just going to add you to the show now.
Hello.
Hello. Firstly, very happy World Theatre Day to you,
Happy
and a
World
warm
Theater Day.
and a warm welcome to our show. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us today.
Thank you. I loved your monologue. I immediately was like, oh, yes, Cherry Orchard. That's one of our favorites.
Yeah, thank you. That's very nice to have the compliment from you. Uh, so to begin with, I am curious to know you're an artist. You perform theater. You are a person who's a photographer as well, and you're also involved in filmmaking. So, what was your motivation? What was it looking like when you decided that I want to move towards academia and start my PhD in theater?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I'm in my sixth year of my PhD. So this was 6 years ago, which was a
Right,
very different world. And I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, wow, Obama was president when I started.
right.
And, it was very much pre-pandemic. Um, so initially what made me move towards a PhD, it was at the recommendation of a number of colleagues. The intention was to go for a PhD to help gather tools, like use it to gather research tools, infrastructure, resources to be able to continue the theater work. So I entered it very much with the idea of, this is going to help me in the kind of work that I do.
Mhm.
It's very rare that there are spaces where long form projects. I do a lot of long form documentary theater and projects
Yeah,
that take years to develop, and we stick with them like over the course of 3 years, and that's very much what the the PhD is. And it's very
right.
rare to have spaces that are set up for that and that support that. So in that way, a PhD was a really good fit. Um, and then I also, obviously, I wanted to teach. So I wanted to get a terminal degree. So, it was either an MFA, but I'm so multidisciplinary, so there aren't a lot of
Mhm.
MFA programs that would be a good fit. Plus, they're really expensive. Or to do a PhD. And I have always loved CUNY, and I've loved the radical history of CUNY and its public university, that I knew about the theater program and the faculty, and so that was, I think I only applied there. I might have done. I'm so non-traditional because I go to hear stories like, oh my gosh, like people applied to 70 different schools and all that. I was like, oh,
Right,
I
right.
showed up to the open house. I think that year was like, oh, this is great. Sign me up. But I only applied there, maybe like two other places, but yeah, it was where I wanted to go. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's good. I mean, gathering tools for bettering your performance in general, and looking for a teaching but from that perspective.
yeah.
But then, how did you land up with the topic that you're working on? Theater in war affected zones.
Yeah.
How would that happen?
So yeah, so I had been, before I went to CUNY, and like even outside of my work at CUNY, I'm a theater practitioner, and I do I was an artistic director, and like my practice is doing documentary theater. And my company had been doing a lot of work in conflict zones. We
Yeah.
do, devised theater, meaning that we work with groups to create their own work, and we have a process. And so I had been working in Lebanon before this, and then we were in other areas. We were in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in some post-conflict zones. And yeah, so I had been doing the work, but I also knew the limitations of doing that work, and really feeling like, oh, I want to understand this a little bit more. I want to understand the
Mhm.
ethics behind it. Not I want, like I need to, need to dig deeper into that, need to dig deeper into what is the impact of this. So, it's, as I'm sure you know, like a lot of the work is really underfunded.
Yeah.
It's important, it makes a huge difference, and there's not a lot of funding or support for it. So yeah, so it was a matter of, if I go into a PhD program, and I would have the opportunity to do research to really bring back to doing this work, and it would help answer a lot of the questions that I have, and really really go deep into something. And it's really rare to have that opportunity. It's such a,
Yeah.
I mean, from the moment I went in, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so fortunate. I'm so blessed to be able to do this work, because, I mean, for a number of reasons, but also just, you know, yeah, because this is going to help really improve, and, you know, uh, improve the work that I'm doing.
Yeah. I'm coming to the point what you said, that it's a very underfunded projects, in general.
Mm-hmm.
So especially when you want to travel to such areas of conflict, uh, money is definitely one important aspect, but the second is getting those permissions and
Mm-hmm.
security, and to be able to go there and actually do the study that you're looking for. So what was it like going to such places and trying to study what people are actually bringing out as a theater format, from these areas?
Yeah, I mean, so there's like I have like two answers to that. Um, First of all, the you know, oh man, I'm trying to figure out how to approach this. So first of all, it's really important for me to not be, and this is also like as a practitioner and also as a scholar, to not be somebody who just goes in, um, you know, parachutes in, does some work and leaves, because I think
Yeah.
that's a huge problem, and that's across the board. There's a lot of NGOs that do that, a lot of governments that do that. Oh, we'll just like throw some money at some experts, and we don't have any kind of understanding of what the cultural norms are on the ground and what people actually need. We're just going to go in and tell people what they need and do this and check the box and leave. So I already knew that that was a big problem, and that was something that I do not want to do either as a practitioner or scholar. So my first few years of the PhD program, I work a lot, for example, in Palestine and the Palestinian
Mhm.
territories in the West Bank. I spent a lot of time really making connections. And I mean, I'd already been doing a lot of work within the diaspora here in New York,
Yeah.
but making significant connections and talking to people and listening. What do you need? What is important to you, and what can I do as somebody here in the US with um, you know a lot of privilege, um, comparatively, and
True.
passport
Yeah.
wise, what can I do? How can I be useful to this, and how can my or to you, and how can my scholarship be useful and helpful in the work that you're doing? And so collecting that data, that takes time, and building relationships where people trust, where there's trust.
Yeah.
That's important. I know I have a lot of colleagues who've worked, for example, in refugee camps in Jordan and in other areas
Mhm.
where, I mean, they were doing incredible work on the ground. And
Yeah.
the local or international governments heard about it and then kind of came in and were like, oh, we're going to put our people into this now and put our money into it. And, fired the artists, the community artists, and brought in
Oh,
their own executives who had no arts training, but were kind of trying to do, I don't know, mental health work. And it ruined the project, and it,
yeah.
hurt the community as well. So it's really important to, to really make make connections and to, make honest and trustworthy connections
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in the
You
spaces
mentioned
that you're
about
working in.
yeah, you mentioned about trust, which is very key, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're already in conflict, and they are probably people don't have houses, they don't have proper food,
Mm-hmm.
sanitation, and all those issues. But as a scholar, as a PhD scholar, what were your struggles? One thing is from their side to connect to them, but
Mm-hmm.
at an individual level, at a personal level, what were your struggles in trying to do these studies?
I mean, I think the first struggle is why theater, right? Because I mean, you even said, like you just said it, like there's people who don't have adequate housing, food, there's electricity, 5 hours a day of electricity if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Um, you can't move. There's no movement, right? Your passport, if your passport's bad, you can't leave a space. So there are some significant, some already significant problems and or structural problems. And immediately, I mean, I remember some of the first times that I went to Palestine, for example, it was like, what? What am I doing with theater here? Like, what? Why?
Mhm.
There's so
Mhm.
many like
Mhm.
real problems. I put real up there.
Yeah.
I study the real, so it's funny to use that word in various ways. But
Yeah.
in talking, and that's immediately where it's like in talking with the artists, because I mean, Palestine, for example, has a huge and robust and incredible theater culture.
Mhm.
And the artists that are in the West Bank, I mean, they're doing groundbreaking work, brilliantly theatrical work, circus, dance, puppetry,
Yeah.
documentary work. There's a whole robust theater culture happening. And in meeting and talking with people, theater's obviously entertainment, and it's it brings the community together, but also people are being reminded of their history. People are able to imagine. I'm interested in imagination and like in
Yeah.
creating spaces within these, within refugee camps and within spaces of war for people to imagine. That's really important because people are imagining, what are some alternatives? What can the world be, and what can the world look like? And that's what, you know, the Palestinian artists are doing
Yeah.
within Palestine, within their own communities. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's always been what has drawn me to the work, and what I bring back here when I do my own work. Similar to that is creating spaces like what can this be? What can theater in New York be? What are
Mhm.
where can we go from here? It's you learn so much, and there's just such dynamic work happening.
Yeah. Yeah. As you mentioned about why theater,
Mm-hmm.
and I think most of us realize this fact that for centuries theater has been the rebellious act. It
Mm-hmm.
gives voices to people who are generally suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go in a war conflict zone, I think that's what majorly probably they are trying to do, try to bring out the suppressed voices. So in that way, how did it affect you as a person? Leave away you're a PhD scholar, you're a theater practitioner, but at a personal level, uh, looking at the pain or the problems that they're trying to portray from their theater, how did it affect you at a personal level?
I think that when I got back, the first times I've gone a few times. I've gone to different areas. Um, the very first time in undergrad, when I was like 19, when I got back, um, it made me really reconsider what and why I'm making work in New York, because I mean, New York theater is it's its own animal. It's commercial theater, so it's Broadway and bright lights and a commercial theater to make money. And that it changed my perception of why make theater. It's not about we're trained very much in the New York theater system. It's about being the best, being famous, making the most money. How do you make a living off of it? It's all very focused on the capital, the economy, and it changed my perception significantly. It's like, oh, we can do a lot more. This is that's not even the tip of the iceberg. It's this can change lives. This can really this can really change lives. And how do we do that here? How do we recreate that kind of community? I mean, I'm very fortunate to have a strong arts community here, but that's not encouraged in the way that it is in some other
Right.
places. So I mean, that's how it changed me and informed my work. It made me see something much bigger than this.
Yeah, that's interesting. It changed the perception of the way you look at theater.
Yeah.
If I just combine it with the ups and downs of PhD, I think you're in the 6th year now. You definitely know how it's about, right? It goes
Oh my
ups and
gosh.
downs. How did that affect you as a person? You just said, "Oh my God."
Oh
So
man.
what was the impact of the PhD process on you?
The PhD process. I mean, I have to say, first of all, like again, I mean, I'm so fortunate that I've been able to do this. And it's, in looking back on it, it's made me the person and the artist I've always wanted to be. And I think, that's maybe a controversial thing to say, because I'm not sure if PhD programs are built to like make you the artist you always want to be. Like it's, very focused on thinker and academic.
Right.
And so it's given me the tools, it's given me the language. I knew it was one of those things where, 'cause I think very much in visuals, I think very much in action, and having the space to pause and you know, to step away from the New York theater ideology, which is what I've been so steeped in, of like having to work, and you kind of get on like this it's like being on a hamster wheel. You just run, and you're just doing things to do them, and to stop and to be like, here's the kind of work I want to do. Here is the kind of artist I am. Here are the contributions I want to make, and to learn how to say no to things. Like the PhD taught me how to say no. It taught me to be really specific in my choices. It's given me language for the work that I do. I never used to say I'm a documentarian. I mean, I thought that just applied to film. So yeah, I learned that. I mean, the mentorship I've had over the years has been incredible. I mean, and of course, like you know, there's always like the hard moments, and like I'm certainly happy to talk about that as well. But yeah, I mean, there are some hard days. I think and for me, the hardest thing with the PhD has been adjusting to the culture. I've loved the work. The work's great. But like academic culture has been a little bit
Right.
of a struggle for me. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, otherwise, I mean, it's been incredible.
Great. I mean, that's very good to know. It's comforting to know that you've liked the process in a way that you've loved your work.
Yeah.
But as you said, no one really can escape the academic struggles,
Oh my
and
gosh.
that stays with you. But if you have any experience that you want to share about academic struggles, or the struggles that you had on the field,
Yeah.
especially in your visits, some unique experience that you remember offhand. that you want to
Yeah.
share with us?
Yeah. So, in my third year, this is wild because it's like, and this is such a clear before and after. So, my mother died my third year of my PhD,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm an only child of, I was raised with my mother as a single parent, and I mean that like when a parent dies, when you lose that, there's a
It's
clear
a big thing.
before and after.
Yeah.
Like there's like
Mm.
my life changed, and I remember like, oh my god, it's like this really visceral memory of it was right before my second exam because you do the comp exam, so we have like the first comp
Yeah.
exam, we have a second comp exam, and somehow like when my mother was sick and she had taken a turn. She died in February, but she kind of started going downhill. My mother was paraplegic. This little backstory. My mother was paraplegic and had, I mean, she incredible what she was able to do in her last years of life. She was mostly bedbound for her last few years of life, and she really started taking a turn for the worse, I think, that fall. I was doing language exams, and my second, like working on my second comp exam when she died. And yeah, I just remember viscerally walking out because she died in a she was in New Jersey. I'm in New York, so it's like an hour from here. Um, she was in a rehab center. I remember
Yeah.
walking out the day she died of the rehab center and thinking like I could quit the PhD right now and nobody would care. I don't know like why that was like the first thing I thought. I was like, I could like, because I knew that it was like, oh, um, my life has now changed. Like we're in like
Yeah.
the after, there's like BC and
Yeah.
AD. Like this is like the AD. What do you want? You could walk away from the PhD. You could walk away from everything you're doing and nobody's going to give a shit. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to, I don't mean
Right.
to curse on your show. Wow. That's not exactly true. I'm going to say that's true. But of course, like that's what I felt at the time because my mother was like my biggest champion,
Yeah.
and it
Completely
was
understand that. Yeah.
really important to her. And I was like, no, 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 I'm going to stay because this is, this is now important to me. So it was like in that moment, like realizing that it was like, oh, okay, I'm also doing this for myself. Even though my mom was my biggest champion, you're now going to have to like pick this up and walk with it like the rest of the way. And
Right.
that was hard. And navigating grief in graduate school was hard, especially like in
Yeah.
that culture where people don't talk. Like I talk about things, like I'm like very much like I'm a talker. So like, I'll
Yeah.
talk about my feelings. I'll tell people like exactly, oh, today I'm sad. Today I'm this,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm used to that. I'm used to like those like intimate kind of conversations, and that is not what that culture is. And figuring out how to navigate grief in that space has been really hard. And like, but also realizing that like, it's a lot of people that are in their mid 30s. I was in my early 30s when that happened. And,
Mhm.
people who are adults, who are caregivers for parents, and people who are losing parents when this is happening. And like, nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about
Mhm.
caregiving and loss and like these huge things that are happening to people there. So that's been interesting. I mean, and that doesn't only obviously affect grad work, but it affects life outside. Like it just affects everything. It's like a lens, and yeah, it affects
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It totally changes the way you look
Yeah.
at your life at a personal level. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
really sorry for your loss.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
no. Thank you.
But what you said, the difference between I do theater as well outside grad school, so I can completely relate to you talking about people don't talk about their problems at a personal level in academia, but in theater we generally are so open about our feelings, our emotions, because that's what we're trying to portray on the stage,
Yeah.
or you're trying to look at how human behavior is in general.
Yeah.
So that's very, very you know I wouldn't say a complete drawback, but it is a sad state in academia in some sense, I'd say.
And I think it's, I think it's changing. And I think like, I mean, I don't know if it's changing on like the large scale, but like, I think that the coronavirus pandemic,
Mhm.
and people trying to navigate through that, and that's like large scale grief, right? Like millions of people dying. I mean, I guess I want to say like, oh, you can't ignore that, but people
Yeah.
try to. Trying to navigate that has maybe changed some of the like slow. We have like
Mhm.
slow progress, right? Change
Yeah.
some of the conversation around grief, but yeah, yeah. I wrote. It was like I was also like that. It was what a weird semester that was. I was also a blogger for this. Like I don't know, my school had like this blogging. You could blog about practice. So
Mhm.
all of my blogs that semester, they were paying me to do this, were like trying to navigate this grief. And like I wasn't even realizing that I was like, this is what I was writing about, but
Yeah.
it was just what it was. And I remember the editor would get back to me like every time and be like, are you sure you want to share this? Are you sure you're comfortable with this? Like maybe make this about like not about you. And yeah, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this
I can,
is
yeah, I can relate to it. It happens if you're an artist at heart. You generally try to bring out your grief, your pain through your art.
yeah,
It's there. It's natural to most artists.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so I truly believe that art or theater or whatever we do, it as much as it gives back to you, it takes a part of you permanently. You
Yes.
lose it. You kind of lose it to art, and that's the same situation with a PhD.
Oh
Or
yeah.
fortunately, unfortunately. So, what's your equation in terms of getting uh, getting things from art and getting things from PhD? You already talked about it, but what's something that you gave away? What was taken away from you in terms of going through this process, going to war conflicted zones?
What has been taken away? Oh, that's a good question. I just submitted my first chapter of my dissertation like about like last week, or 2 weeks ago. And
Mhm.
I realized like I hadn't seen friends. I hadn't seen my community. And I'm like always talking about the importance of community and the importance of like, oh, this is my tight community,
Yeah.
and I'm like every other sentence would be about like the community. And like I haven't seen people. Like I haven't seen my family in years. And like there was obviously like the pandemic and everything. But
Yeah.
that's I want to acknowledge like that's not good. None of that is good. Um and I have to work harder. I don't want to say like that's been taken away from me from the PhD because I also think like, I need to make some choices to prioritize and like, yeah, it's
Mhm.
obviously the PhD is a part of that, but um, you know, I I have felt very isolated at various moments doing this. Um and it's in part because it is very isolating. It's very
Mhm.
I work by myself. I do the research I write, and then I don't see people and weeks go by, and it's like, oh my gosh, and then months go by, and then sometimes years go by. And I'm
Yeah.
finally actually, after we get off of this, I'm going to go for a walk with one of my best friends. And we used to walk every week. Like we used to just walk and like walk through Central Park and up that. And I
Mhm.
haven't done it in months. And
Yeah.
and I think, to answer your question, and I don't want to blame, of course, I don't want to blame the PhD for that, but, it's in part trying to like hit the deadlines. It's like, I don't see people. I see my fiance and my cat.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
otherwise it's been very hard to maintain community. And then to like, come out of these, you go for like these months where you're writing and then come out of it and be like, hey guys, want to hang out? you know, and
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope people will still be there. I'm like, I've been a terrible, been a terrible friend, and I want to make sure people are still there. And, so I'm trying to do better around that.
Yeah, it could be even incredibly hard for a theater practitioner because
Yeah.
you're always surrounded by people because whatever you're doing, you're discussing a new project or you're trying to develop a script or a drama. It's incredibly hard for such a person to, not being able to go around with friends and family. But what is being taken away on your tours to these war conflicted zones? What do you think something that has really hit you strongly and you feel you're a changed person in a different way?
Um, wow, there's so much. I
And just
think,
to add to the question, and how does it add to you as an artist? Because as an
okay.
artist, you always look out for observation and experiences, and it always improves you as an artist. So what's gone and what is the artist in you gained from it?
Um, yeah, so I think, there's a lot of like utopian ideas, I think, I might have lost from doing this work. A lot of ideas around like, well, governments just want what's best. I
Yeah.
used to think that when I was little, like, no. Ideas around power and
Mhm.
privilege. And yeah, I mean, that's been all shifted. There's a lot that's been changed. Um, but I think what I've taken away is, and then this is a big part of my dissertation research, is the importance of process,
Mhm.
the importance of creating a space in rehearsal, because right, like when we do the, like we have the rehearsal spaces, creating spaces for people for again community. There's that word again, to build community, and and to connect and to imagine. And I think working with artists in conflict zones has really shown me the importance of process. And
Mhm.
we do things here. This is again, and when I say here, it's specifically to New York theater, because I different regions of the U.S. have different
Yeah.
theater cultures. But I'm in
Right.
like the heart of. I literally live near Times Square, so I'm in like the heart of commercial theater. It's 4 weeks. You put up a show in 4 weeks, 5 weeks. That's the contract, and then it goes up, and you tour
Mhm.
it. And it's a machine, and I've lost that. I've lost that about art. I've also lost the interest of to participate in that machine, right? So
Mhm.
I was really much conditioned to want to be in
Yeah.
commercial theater. And I'm like, I can't even, I can't even pretend anymore that this is what it is. Like, this isn't it,
Right.
like there's so much more to this. And not that I actually love musicals, but that I don't value what goes on, but it's like, it's the process. And my work has really shown me, and even the work, like I study process, but also the PhD is a process. So while I'm
Yeah.
studying this process, I'm also involved in this other
Right.
process. So it's like process upon process, where you also need to have a good product, but the focus is on what can we create together, and
Mhm.
how can we move forward together. And that is what I've learned, from my work, both going places and also being in it and observing, being in and out at the same time.
Yeah, that's so great, and I think I will take this away from today's conversation with you, because again, the process is always much more fruitful. Of course, as you said, the end product needs to be really good, but process is something that really gives you loads of benefits if you have it in the right way.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah. But it can mess. I mean, I've been part of bad processes. Like it can,
Yeah.
we've had, and I've been part of shows that were phenomenal, but the process was so bad and so toxic that, yeah, I mean, it hurt it. You know what I mean? Like you can't, I mean, I couldn't call that a success.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that. I have had myself gone through toxic processes. Uh,
I mean, every,
it's
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a great conversation. And before I let you go, uh, the last part that I really want to discuss with you is, uh, in general, in the society, to study art in the academic way is not taken very seriously, right? You study math, you study science, you study engineering, you study medicine, but studying art academically to go to that level, um, is was it something similar when you were growing up, or were you having a completely different cultural space around you? Uh, and what are your thoughts about taking art as a proper academic subject till the end?
Oh wow, that's so there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. So, yes, I mean, obviously I believe strongly in the importance of studying art and studying theater and studying, I mean, for me that's, that's studying, that's like a study of history, and it's a study of
Right.
cultures, a study of how we are, it's interdisciplinary. So it's like how we're
Right.
here. It's it's so important. I mean, that's yeah, so obviously I support that. I do that. Growing up, I grew up with my mom. She was super supportive of it. Yeah, I was a dancer. So
Mhm.
I was primarily a dancer growing up and trained
Mhm.
like 20 hours a week in dance. And that's, I mean, that's a whole other field that like this is so important and totally underrated and understudied in various aspects. But um so I was always, I had that safety. My mom created a really safe space for me
Mhm.
to pursue the things that I love. And I've realized as I've gotten older that is not, I mean, that is super uncommon. Um,
Yeah,
some
it
people
is.
are fortunate to have that, but
Yeah.
others are not. And like that was one of the many things like she did for me that, created the person that I am now. Um, I guess in academia, I, I came to this older, and I say like this is like I was already in my, I was already in my, I think I was 30 when I started, and or like 29, 30, and I had already had a career, and
Mhm.
a pretty significant, had done significant work when I came for my PhD. So I didn't feel the need to have to prove to anyone that that theater is important to study, or that theater's,
Yeah.
so if I ran into people like that, or when I do run into people like that, and people are like, oh, this isn't, like, I don't really bother with that. Like, it's okay. I don't feel the need to have to prove myself in that
Yeah.
way. And I think that's actually a big, that's that's huge growth. That wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
That has been huge growth. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like kind of where I am now, but not always the case. But um, so I mean, anybody who doesn't, yeah, it's just like I don't really engage in that way. And I have felt very supported from my school and from my program, and specifically the work I'm doing. My dissertation is very interdisciplinary. It's practices research. It's autoethnography. Like it has a lot of elements that are not, I guess, that are a little bit new for
Yeah.
dissertations in that field.
Yeah.
Um, and my God, I mean, I've been so held in that, and I mean, that's in part, that's so much my advisor, so that she gets the credit for a lot of that, and picking a good committee. But um I was already, yeah, I'm already like, it was already kind of old and seasoned. I don't want to say old and seasoned, but like I'd already had a life before I went in, so I didn't feel like I had to prove it to
Right.
anybody because it's like, of course this is important. Look at this, this, and this. Like
Yeah.
so. Yeah, but there are a lot of people who don't think it's important, and I
Yeah.
think like there are a lot of criticisms of the field, and rightfully so. And there's a lot of work that I think the field needs to do to be more accessible to people outside
Mhm.
of academia. I think there's like the theater, there's like the outside theater world that is also not accessible to most people. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of problems within the field and within theater, and there are a lot of activists and artists who are really doing the work to address that as well, and are really doing, you know, making significant changes. It's not nearly fast enough, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's happening.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really glad that you said you've reached that level where you don't feel the need to, tell people that, hey, theater is important, art is important. I'm really glad, and I hope after a point we can reach to that level where the society accepts it to that level that yes, it's important, and even more because we've seen what people have turned to in the pandemic. It's art that has actually helped people survive through the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I hope the people realize that, those who don't, and those who like doing it, love doing it, keep doing it, and excel in their respective fields.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, all of that. Yeah, I mean, especially like working in the areas I've worked in, it's like this is life sustaining work for people, and this
right.
is also life sustaining work for people here. There are people in the US who are doing groundbreaking theater work, who are doing life changing theater work, who are using theater as the mode of work. A lot of times theater, it always gets kind of bunched up into, oh, it's really mental health work, it's really like, social justice work, it's really,
Right.
this, that, or the other thing, and people don't want to acknowledge theater. There's always this embarrassment specifically around saying theater. They're always like, oh, well, we'll put it under this other umbrella. And yeah, that's I mean, unacceptable, and something that I work in my own practice to change. Done a lot of work with the UN, and it was always
Mhm.
theater work. It was always, I'm here as a theater artist, and I make sure that is, I make sure it's first and foremost theater, because I do
Yeah.
think theater gets it gets a bad rep in that way. Um, so yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm really glad we had this wonderful conversation today, and especially on World Theatre Day. And I hope you continue with your wonderful work, and finish soon academically your PhD, and continue to do good theater work after that.
Thank you.
And I hope we stay in touch. Thank you so much once again for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for creating this wonderful platform for artists and scholars. And I'm so excited and happy and proud to be here. And I look forward to watching future episodes and keeping in touch. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. See you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Yeah. All right, so that was Ash's story today. I hope you liked it, you enjoyed it, and probably gave you a new zest to follow your passion. If you have some artistic orientation, just follow your passion. And we will see you in 2 weeks again with another wonderful story. So stay tuned and take very good care of yourself. Bye bye.